Hello, everyone. On behalf of Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the Administration for Community Living, and the Indian Health Service, I would like to welcome everyone to a long-term service and support webinar series. My name is Michaela Holm, and I work with Kaufman and Associates, and I'll be your moderator today. Today's webinar is titled Cultural Sensitivity in Memory Care. And before we begin, I'd like to highlight some main features of your Zoom webinar interface. Next slide, please. First, the presentation slide will appear in your main window, while the speaker will appear in the top corner and at the bottom of your screen is the menu bar. Here you'll find the chat, raise hand, Q&A, and closed caption functions. Please use the chat box to report any technical issues you are experiencing. We will respond to these concerns as they come in. Next to the chat box is your raise hand feature. You're going to be able to use this during the Q&A segment to let us know when you'd like to unmute your mic so you can ask your question. And another way you're able to submit a question is in the Q&A box itself, where you can leave your questions at any point during the webinar for the presenters to address during the Q&A segment at the end. Lastly, live captioning is available for today's broadcast. Simply click the CC icon to use this feature. And please be aware that today's webinar is being recorded and that the recording will be made available in the near future on cms.gov. With that said, I'd like to welcome everyone to the webinar. Next slide. And please note that this webinar series is supported by a contract awarded by Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this webinar are those of the presenters and do not necessarily represent the official position or policies of the Department of Health and Human Services or Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Next slide. I'd like to introduce today's presenters. We have Donna Fisher, State Long-Term Care Ombudsman, I apologize if I mispronounced that, in the Division of Long-Term Service and Supports at the South Dakota Department of Human Services. Next, we have Mark K. Little White Man, Director of Nursing at Oglala, Sioux Lakota Nursing Home. We have Joseph Ray, President of Uniting Nursing Homes in Tribal Excellence, also known as Unite. We have Kathy Schmid, Consultant at Native American Health Management. Tiffany Shiangru, Facility Administrator at Oglala Sioux Lakota Nursing Home. Amber Sierra, Social Service Director at Oglala Sioux Lakota Nursing Home. And with that, I would like to move on to our opening in a good way with Joseph Ray.
Watse Hupa, Tawai. I want to thank everyone for attending today out there in the good United States. And I wanted to say in the Laguna language, the Keres language, Dashi, thank you, Tawae. Naya Naishtia, Gatsuna Gupistaya, mother, father, ancestors, Lord God, be with us today in our webinar where we can convey our good message of development of a curriculum of care for our tribal elders in the handful of tribal run nursing homes that Unite is proud to be a leader of. And I wanted to say again to the creator, bless our webinar, watch over our families, all our family members that are in service in the armed forces throughout the world, our tribal members, our elders, of course, that we're here for, our Unite members, our board members. Please help us today ensure that we convey a sound message to the attendees and have available for the public. We at Unite have our mission of development of a curriculum of care for our tribal nursing homes. And then of course, also to include our tribal elders who are living in non-tribal nursing homes in all of the towns and cities throughout the United States and Indian country. And again, we never want them to think that we've forgotten about them. And again, that's our mission with Unite. So again, I want to thank everyone for being at this webinar, and thank the creator for allowing me to be part of this group, and allowing me to be on the road traveling today, meeting with the United States Secretary of Interior, Deborah Haaland. So again, I'll convey that message that of our mission and our vision with Unite. And again, I want to thank everyone for being here. So with that, I'll turn it back over. Tawae, hashtame, gume, hame. I'm through. Tawae. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. We can move to the next slide, and Tiffany, please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Tiffany Shangru. I'm the nursing home administrator here at Oglala Sioux Lakota Nursing Home. I have been employed here since the nursing home opened in 2016, in which I started as the business office manager. I would just like to share with you a little bit of history from the beginning of our nursing home. Back in the early 2000s, our chairperson of our governing board, Kathy Janice, had began her quest to build our nursing home. She served as a council member of our tribal council, and while she was doing that, she got a lot of phone calls and talked to a lot of our elders who were out within the state or outside of the state in other nursing homes. And one of their main concern to her was that they wanted family to come and visit, but the family didn't have the money to go see them, and their wish was to come home, to be able to come home closer to home so that they can see family, because they were lonely. So she began inquiring and working on a plan, and along with her, who helped her was a financial advisor, Gary Roos, and a little later, our tribal attorney, Mario Gonzalez, joined them. While this was the beginning of her long journey to get the nursing home here, and of course there were many obstacles. There were many people who supported it, but many who opposed it, including the state of South Dakota, who said we couldn't build a nursing home in South Dakota at that time. But the state of Nebraska and the Nebraska governor were very supportive. On the other hand, we have a piece of our reservation land that stretches into White Clay, Nebraska, and that is where we sit today. Our Oglala Sioux Lakota nursing home is on reservation land here in the state of Nebraska. It took 12 years, and finally the nursing home was opened and approved in 2000, approved and built in 2016, and opened its doors in August with the first resident. By July of 2020, our memory care unit opened as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so our mission statement, this is where our mission statement. The mission statement of the Oglala Sioux Lakota nursing home, of the memory care unit, is to provide a safe and caring environment with dignity and support of our residents and their families through the stages of Alzheimer's and other dementias. Our philosophy offers our residents the opportunity to age in place by understanding the importance of consistency and care, while providing a safe and familiar environment to those with memory impairment. Next slide, please. Yeah. The memory care unit is a 12-bed unit and is a locked unit for the security of those residents who may tend to wander. The access into the building is with a keypad and fobs. It has memory boxes, also known as shadow boxes for pictures and memorabilia hung by every bedroom door to help them to recognize themselves and remember which room is theirs. It is designed to provide a home-like environment and promote independence for individuals with a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease or related dementia. Next slide. I apologize, but I think I got ahead of myself with a couple slides. So Michaela, if you could just go ahead with a couple more slides and we'll move on to Kathy Schmidt. Thank you all for being here and listening today, and I would like to pass it on to the next speaker.
Thank you, Tiffany. Caring for people living with dementia can be more rewarding if you utilize several approaches. And that includes the way you approach somebody, how you connect with them, and how you interact with them. As we know, people living with dementia have a slower ability to process information. And in many cases, in the advanced stages, they may not have the ability at all. It's important to always keep in mind what we do, how we do it, can make a huge difference in the outcome of what we get. So our approaches, our words, our facial expressions are known to make a difference. When we approach someone, we're expecting them to do one of three things. Attend, so be attentive, we get their attention. Respond, and therefore that has to do with the communication side of it. And then participate, and that's to accomplish something. So when we're taking care of our elders living with dementia, you need to build trust. And a lot of that comes with a calm and friendly demeanor. You have to be able to provide the cares and in a safe and non-threatening way. Your approach is the beginning. It's the way to allow them to feel safe and accept you, often known as relationship building. Next slide, please. Positive approach to care has been known to be an effective way to engage in this communication. And there's three ways, or there's several steps to ensure that you can get this success. And we try to teach this for the residents' sake also, and for the caregivers. First of all, when you're going to approach somebody living with dementia, you always want to move close to them, but you want to leave 6 feet of distance. You always stop at the 6-foot mark. And the reason for that is you never want to invade anybody's personal space. You want to allow them the time to look at you, acknowledge you. After you've gotten to that 6-foot space, you put your hand to your face and it draws attention to your face. It will show some friendliness. It allows for them to focus on you, and your facial expressions will determine, an outcome of how well they accept you. You may say hi. We don't ever use words of endearments, honey, sweetie, those type of things. Just a simple word of hi allows them to continue to focus on you. As you move your hand away from your face, you put it in a handshake position. That also shows the friendliness. It allows them time to reach out. It gives them a sense of safety and honesty. You shake hands, making eye contact if it's accepted. So you also read people's facial expressions as you're doing this. Once they've reached out and you're in a handshake position, you want to slide your hand from a shake position to hand under hand. The hand under hand concept allows for connection and functionality. It also provides a safe sense of security for the elder that you're working with. And this is also a nice way to aid in ability to assist your elders in many activities of daily living, such as, helping them comb their hair, assist them with feeding. It allows for that range of motion. Then after you've accomplished that, you move kind of to their side. You want to get in a supportive stance. You want to get to their level to talk. Vision is a huge thing, and their visual fields are smaller. So you may want to squat or kneel. You could pull a chair up and be near them. You greet them, and you may use your name. When you use your name, you do it in a slow, concise way, such as, I'm Kathy. You pause. You are, and that allows them to follow your direction. You deliver your message, something as, depending upon what you're wanting to accomplish, it might be something as simple as, it's lunchtime, come with me. So you're giving them the wording that you want them to do, but you're also allowing them the time to follow your direction. If at any time the resident's upset or may appear to be unhappy, ensure that you're not directly in front of them. That's confrontational. You want to stay to the side, safer for them, and it's also safer for you. There are also positive personal connections that'll assist you, such as greetings. We're all kind of familiar with greetings. Compliments is always a way in to people. Sharing. When you're working with residents that have memory issues, when you're doing these, if you give them a segue in, it's easier for them to respond. So a sharing one might be, I'm from Nebraska, you're from. You always want to notice people, and seeking is always a way to help with the unmet needs or unmet thoughts. So it's an example of that might be if you approach somebody and you want to offer them something to drink because you can tell that they're chilly or whatever, you might just make a comment. It's chilly in here. A hot drink would be nice. Do you prefer coffee or tea? Those are just some of the examples. Other examples of positive connections might be, you know how residents will continue to ask you about things that we know aren't happening in their world. For instance, they might continue to say things like, where's mom? And a lot of people are uncomfortable not knowing how to respond to that. So you might turn that kind of around to have a more connecting ability with them and say something like, you're looking for your mom. Tell me about your mom. Other ways of complimenting or engaging with residents might be, you're looking really colorful today. Your blouse is beautiful. Something complimentary will also set the stage for a positive communicating approach. Communication is the key to success. We have 3 basic reasons that we like to talk to people. To get someone to do something, maybe just to be friendly, converse. And then the last one would be to deal with any distressful situations, frustration, and anger. Ways we respond are pretty simple. They can be short and specific, sincere. Sometimes it's offering thanks or appreciation. We might respond by laughing, humor, friendliness. We shake hands to start in interactions. If at any time what you're doing isn't working, back off and decide what to do differently. Never get into a confrontational state. Next slide, please. We connect with people in 5 different ways. Visually, and clearly that's what we see. Verbally, how we talk and interact. Physically can be with touch. Emotionally, sometimes we need to laugh with them, and sometimes we need to cry. And then last, personally, individually, spiritually. Person-centered care is highly important when you're working with residents that have dementia. You got to know some of their knowledge of their past. This will help you engage with them and build that relationship. You also need to know if they have a history of trauma. Traumatic experiences can resurface with any type of memory loss and can affect their abilities to communicate with you. Knowledge of their traumatic experiences, if they've had any, will also allow you to not hit a trigger point for them, because that can create flashbacks and that will set any connection back. There are always 10 commandments when we're working with people living with dementia that we need to follow. We agree, never disagree, redirect, but never reason. Some of these things will put you in a confrontational manner. Distract, but never shame. Reassure, but never lecture. Reminisce, never say remember. That is sometimes a trigger word for people that have memory issues. Repeat, never say I already told you. You might tell them to do what they can, never say you can't. Ask, but never command. Encourage and praise, but we never condescend. Reinforce, but never force. Next slide, please. So for a positive approach to care, we go slow, we get to the side, we get low, we offer your hand, we call out their name, then wait. If you will try, you will see how different life can be for those caring for dementia residents. Thank you. Now I think I turn it over to Marquet.
Yes, Marquet's next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marquet Little White Man. I'm a registered nurse here at the Oglala Sioux Lakota Nursing Home, and I'm also the director of nursing. I have been working here for 4 years. This is my first year as the DON. I started out as a charge nurse in 2018, and then eventually took on the infection control position. So I was able to experience the progress and the opening of our memory care unit here. Today, I'm going to be speaking about our experiences in our memory care unit. Can I have the next slide, please? So as Tiffany had mentioned, our memory care unit is a 12-bed unit in our facility. We ensure that our memory care unit is adequately staffed to ensure the best care for our residents in the memory care unit. Our daily schedule in our memory care unit consists of 2 CNAs and a medication aide or a licensed nurse. We prefer to have permanent staff in our memory care unit. It's just for the best interest of the residents there with dementia or Alzheimer's. Can I have the next slide, please? So in the photos here, you can see the different activities that we have done with our residents. You can see them listening to the jukebox in the dining room. You can see they had built dream catchers. We've had a group come and set up a teepee for them before, and they all got to go outside and watch and just be a part of the setting up of the teepee. We've had in the picture to the furthest right, we've had dancers come and dance for them, and they really enjoyed cultural activities like that. So our nursing staff utilizes our value-based system while maintaining professionalism when providing nursing cares and assistance with activities of daily living. Our 7 Lakota values that we use are compassion, respect, fortitude, bravery, wisdom, generosity, and humility. All of our directors here, we work together as a team. We show respect to one another to provide the best care for our residents. We also have a Native American provider who works well with our residents here. She's very kind, she's patient, she shows compassion when providing their cares. She's great at breaking down medical terms so they have a better understanding of their cares and disease process or any questions that they have regarding their disease processes. Can I have the next slide, please? So I would like to talk about our activities department. Our activities play a major role in our memory care unit. We provide our memory care unit with an activity aid for 8 hours a day, every day. The activity aids are great at taking their time to encourage our memory care residents with one-on-one activities. This seems to be more effective than group activities in our memory care unit. Our Native American elders find comfort in visiting and light humor. The activity aids frequently involve our residents with cultural activities. In the past, we've had like the pictures that you see, and we had small groups come in for powwows. In the picture here, you can see drum groups singing. We've had hoop dancers come in, the teepee set up. They've made choke cherry patties and wasna. They do painting. They watch powwow videos, especially with our COVID pandemic. We've been showing them more videos rather than having dancers come in. Listening to powwow music, storytelling. Some of our residents have a daily routine that includes drinking wakalapi, which is coffee in the mornings, and listening to Kili radio, which may trigger a comforting feeling for them or bring back memories of their home life or childhood. We've had Native Connections group come in several times and provide sweetgrass braids for them and sage to keep in their rooms if they want to use it to pray. In our culture, smudging with sage or sweetgrass or cedar can be very comforting. It may even bring back memories for them and their childhood. So we're looking forward to more cultural activities in the future. And that's what I got. So I'll pass it on to the next presenter.
Hello, my name is Amber Sierra. I'm the Social Service Director here at the Oglala-Sioux Lakota Nursing Home. And I'm here to talk to you about understanding the role of the social worker in long-term care and in the memory care unit. And a large part of this work is advocacy and building rapport. So advocacy in memory care, can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. Advocacy in memory care is working with people with dementia or Alzheimer's who may be unable to make their needs and wishes known, or otherwise not be able to verbalize what their needs are. And sometimes I know with people who have dementia or Alzheimer's, it is really hard to understand what the message they're conveying. And so my job as their social worker is to help translate the information they're trying to convey. The first thing I want to bring up as a social worker and any profession, but with social workers, we follow the NASW Code of Ethics, and I wanted to just briefly touch on that it's a standard of practice of professional ethics that guides social workers in the way that we provide service to our residents. And it's huge for social workers and a large part of advocacy and building rapport as well. We advocate for their rights, their care, but also their continued autonomy and independence within reason, of course, in their new home. They're new to coming to the nursing home. They've established routines. They've established their breakfast, lunch, and dinner times. They have so many things outside of the nursing home that they were doing on their own or with help from family members or caregivers that now they have to transition to a new system. And they do struggle since they're adjusting to this new lifestyle. So for instance, we are still in the pandemic. And so when we're in isolation periods, our residents might become agitated, frustrated, all the emotions. And so being mindful of these situations, of what's going on at here, and then being able to meet our residents where they're at, being able to talk with them, communicate in the way that they communicate, is helpful for social workers to advocate on their behalf and advocate for ways to help them to relieve some of that stress. Social workers' ethical responsibility to clients is the number one topic in our NASW Code of Ethics. And advocacy falls under that in every asset or aspect of our Code of Ethics. Next, we talk about resident rights, and this is a good segue right into resident rights. Here at the Oglala-Sioux Lakota Nursing Home, we have a list of 25 rights that our residents read over, they talk over with us, and also their guardians, family members, or whoever is helping them to navigate the system. We talk about their rights with them as well. And some of those rights include having the dignity and respect, the right to be treated with dignity and respect, the right to a safe, clean, and comfortable surroundings, the right to own clothing and personal items, the right to receive visitors without or within any reasonable time frame, the right to select own social, religious, and community activities. Those are just to name a few. And our residents in the memory care unit also receive this document, but they receive this document in conjunction in speaking with their guardians or whoever it is that is signing the information for them. And so again, advocacy is in my role is to advocate for their rights on this document, to ensure that they are receiving adequate care, right to privacy and confidentiality, and again, being able to practice their religious, social, and community activities here at our nursing home. We also provide culture-based advocation, which Marque touched on with our 7 Lakota values. So we advocate for those values, and we advocate while using those values as well. We believe in portraying our Lakota traditions and values throughout our nursing home and throughout the services that we provide, along with allowing our residents to practice their culture and traditions in their everyday lives. This also goes for all individuals who practice something different than Lakota traditions and culture. So giving them the respect, compassion, understanding, courage and generosity, honor and prayer, offering all of that to our residents ensures that they feel like they are being cared for here. Next slide, please. Building rapport in memory care is really important. It's important for advocacy, but I felt that we could talk about this after advocacy because it really is part of the foundation to everything that social workers do here, any nursing home, but also within the memory care unit. And one of the biggest portions of or benefits to building rapport is that you can understand somebody's culture, understand somebody's belief system, the way that they go about their everyday routine. And it helps the resident to feel more comfortable speaking with you about their lives. Getting to know residents. So again, getting to know residents is about, and I believe Kathy touched on this a whole lot in the beginning, but it's about meeting them where they're at, understanding their likes and dislikes, understanding, again, their routine, what their life was like outside of the nursing home. And in our dementia, our memory care unit, their families would be a great resource for us. And so getting to know residents and their guardians is really important. Getting to know their family members or whoever their caregivers were at the time prior to them entering the memory care unit is really important for that reason. There's a few types of guardians that we work with here at the nursing home, and it's the court-appointed guardians versus the family-appointed guardians, all of which are granted the authority and responsibility to act on behalf of their person. Some of the similarities are that courts and families work to ensure the best interest of their person. And so our job as social workers is to ensure that guardians and families, court-appointed guardians and family-appointed guardians are informed with all of the information that they need to make a good decision or an informed decision on behalf of their person, whatever's in the best interest. So some of the things we might talk about is paying their bill here at the nursing home, signing contracts to ensure that their bill does get paid here and their money doesn't go anywhere else. Medical records to be able to ensure our residents can get access to medical records or their doctors can get access. Medical care, deciding who can talk to the resident and who's unable to talk to the resident, who can take our residents out of the facility and who can't. However, in the memory care unit, they're not able to leave the facility. However, they can visit with family members, and I believe that time is set forth with an activity director and our administrator. One of the differences is the family member has more vested interest in the person, so they may be a parent or a guardian of some sort, and they had to care for them in their lifetime, and then now our resident is here, so we share that common interest in providing the best care for their person. Also, those families will know more specifics about who can be or what kind of lifestyle they lived and who can be trusted to come and visit with our residents, who keeps them safe, those kinds of things. Becoming acquainted with residents' care team. We need to make sure we become develop a good rapport with administrators. Our administrator here at our nursing home is our connection to the outside organizations, and they help us to understand new regulations, policies, procedures, all of those things. We have to have a good rapport with our nursing staff, our CNAs and our director of nursing, our admissions coordinators, our business manager, our activities director, and also our dietary director. All of these individuals play a huge role in the care of our residents. And so as social workers, we need all of that information to be able to advocate effectively for our residents. And lastly, being visible, which is, I feel like, is the most important part of building rapport. They need to see you and get used to you being in their space. So being visible, walking around the facilities, engaging in activities, scheduling visits, all of those things play a really important role. So thank you for listening, and I'm going to pass this on to Miss Donna.
Thank you, Amber. I'm Donna Fisher. I'm the State Long-Term Care Ombudsman in South Dakota. and just want to talk to you just a little bit about the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program, which is a nationwide program and operating in all states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and Guam under the authorization of the Older Americans Act. Long-term care ombudsmen are advocates for residents of nursing homes, boarding care homes, and assisted living communities. We promote a person-centered, trauma-informed approach to care and advocacy and work to empower the residents. Our client, as you want to say maybe, is the resident. No matter who raises the concern, we take our direction as much as possible directly from the resident. The Ombudsman Program works to resolve concerns related to the health, safety, welfare, and rights of individuals who reside in long-term care facilities. The Ombudsman Program also promotes policies and consumer protections to improve long-term services and supports at the facility, local, state, and national levels. Long-term care ombudsmen are trained to listen, respect, and amplify a person's needs, including their cultural preferences and beliefs. Ombudsman representatives gain information by observation, talking with families, facility staff, community members, and residents. All long-term care ombudsman services are free and confidential. In reference to the cultural aspect, we often consult with individuals if we are needing additional guidance in advocating in the best way possible for the resident to participate in cultural activities outside of the facility or inside of the facility. With that, that concludes my little portion. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. At this time, we will open it up for questions. We'll first be addressing the questions already submitted in the Q&A box, but at this time, I'm not seeing any. So if you would like to have any questions, please submit yours in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Or you can also raise your hand feature and we can unmute your line so you can ask the question out loud. So we do have a question in the Q&A box that I'll read out loud for the presenters to answer. As a social worker, do you have any tips for working with someone outside of a culture you are familiar with?
Yes, actually I do. It depends. I think when working with, if you're in memory care or working in the nursing home in general, I think that plays a big factor, but also you'll know that information when they come in for admissions. And so if you know that they might be, of a Catholic background or maybe a Muslim background or something other than what you're familiar with, might be a good idea to ask some questions of the family, but also do your own research. There's a lot of good information out there about different cultures and religions and what their practices are. Like, do they like to shake hands or do they like eye contact? So making sure you do your research after you had some good conversation with their families or caregivers or whoever it is that is helping them to get admitted into the nursing homes. I hope that helps.
We received a thank you. Thank you, Amber. I did see there was another question that was where we can find the presentation in video. In the near future, that'll be posted on the cms.gov website. We have another question from Heidi Ross. What can be done when a family member and or resident faces retaliation after the LTC ombudsman gets involved? I'm sorry.
Okay, it's a difficult word. It's ombudsman.
Ombudsman, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. That is really a great question and so challenging. I would say there are a couple of different things that you could do, and that's reach back out to the long-term care ombudsman program. You could also make a complaint with your survey agency, the people who survey and certify the facility that your loved one or your individual you're helping advocate for is residing in.
Thank you. We also have another question in the chat box. Is everyone in the memory care unit at the same stage of dementia?
No, there is no, the residents are all at different stages. Everybody's different. So it's very interesting. But yeah, no, they're not at the same stage.
And I see we do have a hand raised. Heidi Ross, if you want to unmute your line, you can go ahead and ask that question too. I'll give them some time to unmute. A follow-up from my previous
sorry.
question. Oh, Heidi, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I unmuted. I apologize.
No, you're okay.
You didn't hear anything?
No,
Okay.
we did not.
Oh, I was just going to say, this question I've experienced myself as a caregiver, but also as a social worker, but I still see it raised a lot. And I know there are different ways to answer it, but there are some family discussion platforms about when someone's saying, I want to go home. The resident says, I want to go home. And it could be answered in different cultures. You could handle it different ways, and different ages handle it differently. Like some older generations will say, oh, my doctor said I need to be here. They'll accept that. But some of the younger generations might not do that, that won't fly with them. What do you recommend that people can say? It helps with, maybe settling down the person that's the resident, but also the caregiver, dealing with caregiver guilt. Thank you.
So is the question about how to address the caregiver or how to address the resident?
Both. I mean, I think that mostly the caregivers want to know how to answer the question, but also maybe what does the staff say too? Because it's really important. I think everyone's on board to make that resident feel comfortable as possible.
Right. I think some of the approaches that I've used in the past and that I've heard of as well is to always be transparent with our residents or with your person. And I know that it's really hard when they have dementia or Alzheimer's. And so just continuing to reassure them that they're going to be okay. As far as caregiver guilt, there are a lot of support groups out there. If your nursing home or care facility doesn't have one, or your area doesn't have one, I know there's a lot of good online support groups for caregivers as well. But one of the things that I like to talk to caregivers about is to find your de-stressing points or your de-stressing activities rather, sorry, to really understand what helps you to feel stress relief. So, and in a healthy way. So if it's meditation, if it's yoga, if it's talking about it, again, there's a lot of good support groups out there. But with the messages to our residents who have dementia and Alzheimer's, it's always good to, you give them that first initial conversation, like, hey, you're gonna go to this is going to be your home now, and this is where you're going to be living, and really make it comfortable and reassure them that they're going to be okay. But then also meeting them where they're at after that, because I think we just talked about levels of progression. And so we want to make sure that we're not stressing them out even more. And so if they're in the unit or they're in their new home and they're ready to go home, we might talk about that. What does home look like? How was it at home? You know, who's at home? Letting them talk about what's going on in their mind with being at home, I think is always helpful. Does that help?
That's great. Thank you.
Heidi, I want to add one thing to that. When you're working with the dementia, sometimes we don't know what triggers that. And there might be a trigger point that goes along with why they're thinking about their home. So turning that around when somebody constantly is asking to go home or whatnot, it may not be the home itself. It might be something that occurred in there. So if you say to them things such as, tell me about your home, you might find something out about that resident that they would prefer to have occurring here that would make it more home-like for them.
Great, thank you, Kathy and Amber. We have additional questions in the Q&A box. Do you guys offer grief/loss support? What does that look like for the patient and clients you work with and their families?
I'll answer that. So at this point in time with COVID and what's going on, support groups are kind of gone by the wayside. At some point in time, you know, we may open up some type of support groups for spouses of residents that are in the nursing home, that type of thing. I've been involved with a lot of support groups, and it allows other people to dialogue with other family members that are also dealing with somebody living in a nursing home, especially in a memory care unit, and the loss of memory. So at some point in time, that is something I think that we'll look at opening for our nursing home. But in general, those advocacy groups such as that have been very effective for the family member, because there's always a lot of guilt with having their loved one away from them.
Thank you. The next question is, in rural areas, can you talk about access to healthcare and services for the Native American population?
Yes, I can talk about this. I was kind of waiting for Mark or Tiffany, but I can try my best to discuss about it. But in rural areas, especially here on our reservation, we are just like any small town, except that we have our Indian Health Service that provides care to our residents and to our entire population on our reservation. And one of the things to understand too is that reservations are different in sizes. And so the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation is huge. It's about 11,000 square miles. So it's about the size of a small state. It's pretty huge. And so sometimes to get to the hospital or to get services, it's really hard. But here at the nursing home, we also utilize, we have the capacity to utilize not only Indian Health Service, but some of the local hospitals in Nebraska as well. So we might use Gordon Memorial Hospital, or we might have to go to Scottsbluff, different areas like that, which are about a 30-minute to an hour to maybe 2-hour drive time frame for our residents. And so it really just depends on the severity of care that they might need.
Thank you, Amber. The next question is, if starting support group with caregivers, does anyone have ideas to retain their interest in attendance and participation in a 4-class program?
Can you repeat that question?
Yep. If starting support group with caregivers, does anyone have ideas to retain their interest in attendance and participation in a 4-class program?
So when we're talking caregivers at a facility, or I'm not sure if we're talking caregivers at home. So your support group for caregivers that were at home, the resident was at home and then maybe came into a nursing home. Most support groups, you provide a little bit of education, but then you kind of go with the flow of what the group is wanting, and you set your stage from that.
And Kathy, they were able to provide more information. It's for outside the facility.
So for caregivers that are outside of the facility, there's some advocacy groups, nationally. I don't know about real local ones, and especially in, certain areas. I think that might be something that an ombudsman or at a state level, they might be able to give them information on the advocacy groups. Anybody else have any direction on that?
I guess I would just like to add that if you're retaining their interests or wanting to retain interest in your support group, the whole idea behind the support group is offering caregivers a chance to talk about what is going on or what they're feeling with, their person going to nursing home care or not being able to provide their person the care that they needed, or whatever it is that they might be feeling emotionally. And so creating that agenda or that class based on those topics and allowing people to talk about how they're feeling in that process. That would be my idea.
Yep, this is Donna. I agree with Amber. And I think there are some national resources that you could tap into if you need to, such as the Alzheimer's Association, a family support group, a family council, if you have one in your state or in your surrounding area. Sometimes the long-term care ombudsman program has a Facebook group or Facebook lives that they do that you could potentially tap into if that would potentially be a resource for you as well.
Thank you. We have another question. Who determines when a resident can go home, if they can go home? Can a resident decide they want to go home if there is someone at home that can take care of them?
Okay, this is Kathy, and I'll tackle that one. So I'm assuming what they're requesting is there's a difference between a resident that's capable of making decisions and a resident that's not capable of making decisions. And any elder or resident that's in a nursing home that's capable of making decisions can leave the facility and can discharge at any time. We have no rights to keep them in there. You need to make sure that you're going to discharge to a safe environment. So it might require some previous work to look at the place they're going and safety aspects and that such a thing. But if it's somebody who's not capable of making decisions and has a decision maker, then it will be in conjunction with that decision maker. Sometimes we run into situations where we have family members that don't get along, and therefore a family member may want to take somebody home, but the decision maker knows that it's not safe. We always have to revert back to the decision maker. We involve the physician to make sure that a discharge is safe and capable, and we may have to involve other outside resources to make sure that safety is there. I hope that answered the question.
Great job. Thank you. We are at our webinar time. So I would like to thank Donna, Marque, Joseph, Kathy, Tiffany, and Amber for joining us today and helping us better understand cultural sensitivity and memory care. In closing, I'd like to remind everyone that today's webinar was recorded and that the audio and presentation slides will be made available online at cms.gov. Thank you again for joining today's webinar, and our session is now concluded. Thank you.